What's up, guys? I'm BTC. More potential changes to Reaper and Junkrat, possible buff to Mercy, and more. Every now and again, I'll get a comment that says I'm a little on the negative side when I'm talking about Blizzard making certain changes. And here's the thing. The way I've always been is that when someone does something right, I praise it, and when they do something wrong, I criticize it. There's no exception to this. Just because Blizzard is the one that makes the game doesn't mean I'm going to pretend like everything they do is amazing. I know other people do that, I'm not going to. But what I'm going to try to do in this video, we're going to have a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. Over on the official forums, Jeff Goodman made a series of posts responding to a bunch of questions on a variety of topics, and this is column A good thing because it's nice to hear from the devs themselves talk about some of the issues that are happening in the game. For a while, we actually hadn't been getting a lot of updates from the devs, and there was just no dev update that Jeff Kaplan was making either. It was just pretty much silence from them. So it's really good to see them kind of back in the action and starting to make more posts on the forum. So the first thing was in response to a question about Echo and how the character looks like it could be flying because it has wings, and Jeff Goodman simply responded with just a, you're right. Now, can't read too much into this, let's be honest. He might just be saying, oh yeah, it has wings, but, you know, whatever. The thing is, I think it's very possible we're going to get another flying character at some point. Preferably, I would rather have Jetpack Cat, but regardless, Echo could be something like Zenyatta, where it's just kind of the floaty thing going on. But if you look at the character, she does have wings. It is possible that she could be a flying character. I think it's going to be another support, though, so I'm not sure how that would be all that different from Mercy. That's kind of a weird place. Speaking of Mercy, though, he did address another question about this and the possibility of giving her more healing because she went from 60 healing per second down to 50. So the question was, can there be a middle ground? And he said that he certainly thinks it's possible. Overall, her healing output is still higher than the other healers, which she pays for by not being able to split focus and do other things while healing. I'd also love to be able to increase the power of her damage boosting, but it causes a lot of problems with various breakpoints where suddenly X hero can one-shot 200 health heroes, etc. There are other ways to make it feel better without just adding raw damage, though. We'll see. So listening to this, I think the possibility of the damage boosting changes are kind of like a long way off, maybe. But as far as the healing goes, he does seem like he's open to increasing the healing on Mercy. Maybe they will bump it up to 55 healing per second, and I think that could be something that we might see on the PTR fairly soon. Now, I don't know about just increasing her healing per second with her primary. I really think that Mercy suffers from not being able to do stuff. Like, there really isn't a whole lot of things that you can do. You just kind of click on somebody, and then you try to move around and not die. There really isn't a whole much more than that. And I think if they gave her an ability that allowed her to actually kind of like a little bit of a boost of a healing here, or maybe a lingering heal or something, you know, just a little extra thing that she can do. He then goes on to talk about some of the bad decisions that they've made for balancing. The first thing is Brigitta. He says, I'd say at this point it's pretty clear Brigitta's initial balance was pretty far off the mark. She's been nerfed multiple times since then, and she's still very strong. Alright, we're going into column B on this one. The reason why Brigitta is still strong is because you keep nerfing the wrong things. So Brigitta is garbage in a 2-2-2 lineup. She has been garbage ever since the character was originally released. And this is why her pick rate initially wasn't all that great, particularly in the higher bracket and the pro scene. She wasn't really used because in a 2-2, she just wasn't good enough. But then Ghost Comp came, and with a 3 support, Brigitta became amazingly strong. And the reason why she's still strong, and the reason why we still have goats, because of all the nerfs that they've given Brigitta, none of them actually nerfed the thing that made her strong in the goats comp, and that's why she's still there. So, like, that's what it is. Like, she's still strong because you've been nerfing the wrong things. It's like having a character that runs too fast, and you keep changing the color of his shoes 100 times or more. That's not gonna change his movement speed, right? It has nothing to do with it. Anyways, that's column B. Alright, so next he says, another regret is although I really like the way Hanzo turned out, I somewhat regret increasing his projectile speed. Specifically, it will always feel great when testing a change like that, and it has helped him make him more consistent, but he has lost some of what made him feel very different from the other heroes. That's not to say we're going to see Hanzo nerfed next patch or something, but it's just one of those retrospect things that I wonder if there was another way to get to the same goal. I don't know what the issue is here. Hanzo was one of the best reworks they've ever done. Probably the best rework that they ever done. I'm not really sure why you would think that, like, if increasing the projectile speed is what one of the main things that helped him be good, I don't know. It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, I guess. Next up, he talks about Junkrat Reaper and the next PTR patch. He says, we're mostly going to see how this next patch shakes out, since it has a ton of changes in it already. That said, we would have liked to have kept Junkrat buff at 140 from a pure DPS standpoint, especially against tanks and barriers, but it was just really pushing it once he could one-shot 200 hit point heroes with a 50% boost from Orisa, Nano Boost, or Baptiste. We experimented with making the grenades no longer explode on enemy impact once they hit a surface as a way to nerf his spam without affecting direct hits, but it felt really weird and kind of broken in a lot of cases. So possible Junkrat buffs and some different Reaper buffs, since the pure passive healing buff was really problematic at the lower ranks. For the Junkrat changes, I don't think he really needed a direct damage boost at all. If they wanted to make him stronger versus tanks or against barriers, then they could have simply made his attacks deal more damage versus armored target. Kind of like what Torbjorn's Molten Core Ultimate does. It does extra damage if you have armor. Or if they wanted to make it stronger against barriers, they could have done that, where if it hits a barrier, instead of doing 120 damage, it does 150 or 160 or whatever they wanted to do. That way, you can increase his damage potential and his effectiveness against tanks and barriers specifically, without giving him the one-shot capability against 200 hit point heroes. Considering they already have some of this stuff, all of these mechanics are already in the game on other heroes, I don't know why they didn't just give it to Junkrat. It's already there, guys. You already did it. Just put it on the character and you're done. As far as the Reaper buffs, we're going to do a little column A, a little column B. Column A, I'm glad that they recognize and that they're admitting that the Reaper buffs were a total failure from top to bottom. It had no effect on the upper bracket players and was way too strong on the lower bracket players. However, a little bit of column B here, when I looked at those changes, it was painfully obvious that that was going to be the case. It was going to have no impact at all on the upper bracket players, and it was going to be way too strong for the lower bracket. So the column B is that, how did you guys not know this, I guess, you know? So good on you for recognizing that it was bad, but why did you not see it in the first place? But there is some good news about Reaper Symmetra and their teleport abilities, and he says, I actually looked into the railing stuff with Symmetra Reaper, ground targeting, and worked on it for a while last week. It turns out it's a bit more complicated and is going to require some code changes to try to change it, but I'm hoping we can get something in the next patch if it goes well in playtesting. As for the teleport build speed, specifically for Symmetra, he says maybe it'll get increased. I totally get the thing where you're trying to make the clutch save and build time is so long that your teammates die anyways, but the concern is that we need to make that you just don't give your whole team instant teleport across a huge area. If we're not careful, it could really make all chokes even not worth trying to defend. That said, we could try and play test and see how it goes. So it does seem like they're going to try to fix the teleport issues when you're trying to teleport onto a ledge or into railings, or just the really clunky way that the teleport works. And possibly Symmetra might get a boost in the build speed. I don't think he's going to change anything for Reaper, and this is a little more column B. Shadow Step, Reaper's teleport, is the single worst ability in the game. Hands down. There is nothing even remotely close to it. It is the absolute bottom of the barrel. It is a broken ability. And even if they fix the railing issue, it's still going to be the slowest ability in the entire game. It's really loud. It's as bright as the sun, which doesn't really make any sense. You know, it's a shadow step, and yet you glow as bright as the sun. And on top of that, you have no control of your character for about 2.5 to 3 seconds. Again, it's the slowest ability in the entire game. It is terrible. And the reason why the Reaper changes didn't do anything is because he's a close character that can't get in close. At the higher brackets, you just get destroyed before you even get close. At the lower brackets, it's not so much of an issue, but that's why he's like never used in the upper brackets, and he's hardly used in pro play. I know a couple of teams tried to use him recently in the Overwatch League, and most of the time when they use Reaper, they just get destroyed, so it's not really a good thing to do. The last thing to mention is if he could add one mechanic, what would he add? And he says, I always thought it would be cool to try to do some sort of tunneling effect where you could maybe temporarily destroy or remove a part of a level and move or shoot through. Honestly, it'll probably never happen due to the immense tech issues, but it always seems like it could be cool to see. Now, I don't think that they really should try to do the whole move through a building or teleport through a building, but I definitely think they could make it so that you can attack through a building. After all, some things can already do that, most notably Hanzo's ultimate. So you can have abilities or attacks that go through buildings. I mean, you would have to balance it and there would have to be some restrictions, but you certainly could have a character that is able to use an ability that just goes right through the walls and it just phases right through. Like, you don't need to try to render all the stuff inside the building or any of that. You just have the ability, just like a Hanzo ultimate, it just goes right through the wall and you can hit the enemies on the other side. I think that would work fine, and it might be kind of like a halfway meeting area for what he's trying to say here. But there you go, guys. So I expect that the next PTR probably going to have a slight mercy buff. I think that we're going to see the better teleport stuff for Sim and Reaper, and also some other kind of buff for both Junkrat and Reaper. So what do you guys think they need to change about those characters? Would you like to have what I suggested for Junkrat's attack, where he just does extra damage to barriers? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.